We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Tesam and Beis in Meseches Bava Metzia. This is Bava Metzia Daf 39b. On the previous summit, the Gemara said that a person is not able to make a chazaka on the property of a minor, meaning to say if he's there on the property for 3 years, normally if you're on a property for 3 years and nobody protests, that is a chazaka. We can presume that you are the owner of the property. That's not true if the property belongs to a katan, because a katan is not able to protest. And now the Gemara says, Va'afilu higdal, that's true even if the katan grows up, and now you're there 3 years while he's an adult, still you cannot make the chazaka. Rashi explains, Va'afilu higdal hakatan mishiyard l'sochu, meaning the katan has now grown up from the time that this person went to the property. V'achlu gimel shanim b'fanav mish higdal, and now he's been there 3 years from the time the katan grew up. Lo have a chazaka, it's still not a chazaka. Tahoel utchilas yiridasu l'sochu have a katan, since originally when he went down to that property, when he took control of that property, the individual was a katan. Lo yada keshehigdal shein shalaviv, so he didn't know when he became an adult that it was his father's property. And that's the reason why he didn't protest, and that's why you can't make a chazaka. And Rashi says, the svira leilu Rav Huna, because if Rav Huna held the machzikin bohen mishahigdal that you are able to make a chazaka from once the katan becomes an adult, so heichi machtinon nachri lenechsei katan, how could we allow a stranger, how could we allow a non-relative to manage the property of a katan? Shemi yehi biyadu mishiyagdal, maybe he'll continue to have that property from when the minor becomes an adult. V'yito natam macharta li mishagadalta, and then he'll claim that you sold it to me from when you became an adult. V'achaltem shnei chazaka, and I was there for the years of chazaka. And so clearly from the fact that Rav Huna says we are allowed to have a stranger manage that property, that means that stranger is not able to make a chazaka even when the katan becomes an adult. And the Gemara continues, V'lo amrin ela ba'achei daba. Now what we just said is only true by the paternal brothers. Aval ba'achei de'ima les lanba. But if it's his maternal brothers, there is no issue. Rashi explains, V'lo amrin de'ein moridin karv lenechsei katan. We said in the previous Amud that you're not allowed to have a relative manage the property of a minor. That's only true ela ba'achei da'aba. That's talking about the relatives, let's say the brothers through the father. Achiv me'aviv, his brother from his father, his paternal brother. Sheyiton behen sad Yerusha. Again, then in that case, there's a claim. He can claim to be the Yorish, he can claim to be the one inheriting the property, and he can essentially steal the property from this minor. That's not true by a maternal brother. That's why it's not a concern. That's why les lanba. And even by the paternal brothers, even there it's only a problem ela barasa, it's only a problem by land. But by houses, les lanba, that's not a concern. We're not afraid that he's going to steal the house because all the neighbors know that it really belongs to the minor. And even by land, we only say it ela delo avid itada. That's only if the father had not made a shtar, he had not essentially pronounced through a document that he's dividing up the property in the following fashion. Aval avid itada, but if he did make such a document of division, kala isla, so then the word goes out, everybody knows it belongs to the minor, and it would not be a problem to have a relative manage that property. But the Gemara then in the end says, Veloi, everything we just said above is not true. Loshna acheda, but it doesn't matter if it's a paternal brother, veloshna achedima, it doesn't matter if it's a maternal brother, loshna arata, veloshna bati, it doesn't matter if it's land or houses, veloshna avid itada, loshna lo avid itada, doesn't matter if he made a document of division or if he did not make a document of division. Lo machtinon, we do not have a relative manage that property because we are concerned that he's going to steal that property from the minor. And Rashi explains, Arata refers to sados, Arata, which means land, that refers to fields. Aval bebati les lanba, by houses is no concern. Shashchenim mi'idin aleim shabo lechelko shel katan. The neighbors will all testify that these people are taking what really belongs to the minor. Itada is a shtar chaluk, it's a document of division, keshecholko mitchila, when they originally divide everything. Rak habamos lo saru mitargamina b'masa lo atadu lo hifligu mehem. It's translated that way again when we talk about dividing. We use the word itada. Lo shna achei de'ima, but then we say it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's a paternal, maternal brother, meaning to say, why is that a concern? Pen yomar shal imi hayu nichse mulug. Maybe what the person can claim is as follows. He'll say, it really belonged to my mother, and it was nichse mulug. It actually was property that belonged to my mother that my father was working. V'yaviv shal katan bal imi haya. And the father of the minor happens to actually be the husband of my mother. Muchzak behen machmas shuachal peiros. And he only had that property because he was taking the fruits. V'hu meis kodem limine, died before my mother. V'lo yirash. And therefore this person is not the true Yorish. I am the true Yorish. I get half of it because of my mother. I get it through my mother. And so therefore, even in a situation of a maternal brother, we have a concern that he will steal the property. And the Gemara continues with a story. There was an elderly woman and she had 3 daughters. She and one of her daughters was captured. They didn't know the fate, what happened to her. They didn't know what happened to her daughter. Idach tarti benasa. Now the other two daughters, shchiva chadminai, who one of them died, v'shavka yanuka, and left a child that was a minor. And so the Gemara says, Amar Abaya says, Hechi Navid, what exactly should we do? We have all this property of this elderly woman, and we don't know what to do with the property. Look, minu lenichse biyada da'achsa. Now, we could put all the property in the hands of the sister, the surviving sister, but that's problematic because Dilma Shechiva Savsa, maybe the elderly woman has died. Ve'in moridin karov lenichse katan. We're not allowed to have a relative manage the property of a minor, which is exactly what would be happening over here, because the minor really stands to inherit some of the property, and now you're having a relative take that property. We always have a concern the relative might steal the property from the minor. Another option is nukaminu lenichse biyada diyanuka. Let's put the property in the hands of the child. But again, dilma lo shechiva savsa. Maybe the elderly woman has not died, and we said above ve'ein moridin katan lenichse shavi. We don't have a minor take care of the property of a person who's held captive because we're afraid the minor is going to ruin the property. And so the Gemara therefore says, Amar Abaya says, Hilkach therefore, Palga Yahavina lo la'ach, so we'll give half of the property to the surviving sister. V'idach Palga, and the other half, Mukminan le'apetropa liyanuka, we'll have an apotropos, we'll have a caretaker take care of that property on behalf of the child. Rava Amar Rava says, Migo de Mukminan apetropa lepalga, once we already are setting up a caretaker for half the property, Mukminan le'apetropa idach Palga, we might as well have that apotropos take care of the other half as well. And the Gemara continues the story. Lasof at the end, Shamu dishchiva sabsa. They heard that the elderly woman died. They didn't know what happened still to the sister that was taken captive. Amar Abaya, so Abaya said, Tilsa yahavinan lo la'achsa, 1/3 of the property, give to the surviving sister. We know she's entitled to 1/3 of the property. V'tilsa yahavinan leili yanuka, and then we can give 1/3 of the property to the minor, because we know the minor is entitled to 1/3 of the property. Now the last third, we don't know if that's that sister that was taken captive, whether that's hers, whether she's still alive, or if she died, it's actually going to be split among the surviving sister and the child. And so therefore, v'idach tilsa, that last third, yahavinan danka liach, so we split it in half. 1/6 goes to the sister, to the surviving sister. V'idach danka mukminan le'apetropa liyanuk, and the other 1/6 will have an apotropos take care of it on behalf of the child. And again, Rava Amar Rava says, Migo demukim apetropa lidanka, once we already have an apotropos taking care of 1/6 of it, mukmina nami apetropa liidach danka, so we'll have the apotropos take care of the other 6 as well. Might as well have the apotropos take care of everything that is remaining. And Rashi explains, Hechi lavid benichse desab, so what are we going to do with the property of the elderly woman? She'enanu yodinim kayemis, and Mesa, we don't know if she's alive or dead. So biyada dachs, if we're going to give it over to the sister, the hilchas Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, because the halach is like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, that we have a karov take care of the property of the shavui, to come le Shmuel kavase, because Shmuel holds like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, but again, that's a problem. Dil mashchiva sapsa, maybe the elderly woman died, v'yesh lekatan chelak b'hen, and the katan has a portion of the property, sheim shalom machmasimo, because it comes to him through his mother, o shema chetzion shalom, shema mesu shtei hashvuyos, or maybe half of it is his, because maybe both of the captives died. So again, that's a problem of having the relative take the minor's property, take care of the minor's property. And then the Gemara said, Lukuminu lepalga denichse biyada diyanuk, if you put half, the Gemara said you'll put half of the property in the hands of the child. Then we're concerned, maybe the elderly woman did not die. And therefore he doesn't have a portion of them. You don't have a minor take care of a captive's property. And the Gemara then said, so we give half to the sister. That's either way. If they both died, so then she actually inherits half the property. And if not, we do say that a relative is allowed to take over the property of a captive. And then mukmin an apotropos, and then you have an apotropos take care of the minor's property. V'lo machsinan katan legavai, you don't have the katan do it. Dil malo shchiva, because maybe the elderly woman did not die. Ve'in moridin katan lenichse shava, you can't have a minor take the property of a captive. And then in the end, Shamu the Shchiva Savsa, they heard that she did die, the elderly woman did die. L'sof Shamu Shamesa Hazekeno, V'alabashanish Beslo Shamu, they heard the elderly woman died, they didn't know about the daughter that was taken captive, what happened to her. And the Gemara then said, Tilsa Yavina, Davadai Shlish Anachasim Lazu Shlish Lakatim. We know 1/3 goes to the surviving sister, we know 1/3 goes to the child that's a minor, and Danka Shasos Chatzi Ashlish, that means a 6, which is a half of the remaining third. So Yavina La'ach, so that we give to the sister, Mimon of Shach, that either way should go to the sister, and Meso Achos, if the other sister died, Hare Chatzi Chelka Lazu, she gets that. Vim Lavan, if not, Moridin Karov L'Nechse Shaveh, there's no problem having a relative take care of the property of the captive. V'idach Danka, and then the last 6, Lo Yahavinan Law, Shema Shel Katan Heim, again, you don't give it to her, maybe it belongs to the minor. Ve'in Moridin Karov L'Nechse Katan, as we said, you don't have a relative take care of the property of a minor. And the Gemara continues with another story. Mari Bar Isaac was a powerful individual. Asalei Achami Bechozai, a brother came to him from Bechozai, which was a faraway area. Amar le plogli, he said, divide with me the property that you inherited from your father. The idea over here was, as Rashi says, Asa le'acha mi Bechozai, a brother came from Bechozai, Shahalach aviv le'Bechozai, the father of Mari bar Isaac went to Bechozai, v'nasa sham isha, married there a woman, v'yolda lo ezen, this child was born. V'chazar Mari l'kana, Mari returned to here, v'yard l'nichsayav, he took over and inherited his father's property, u'baza achrav, now this child comes, this son comes after, l'zman maruba, after some time, v'tavachelko, and he's claiming his half. So that's what he's saying to him, plogli, divide up the property that you inherited from our father, I am your brother, I should get half of that property. Amar le, so Mari bar Isaac said to him, Lo yadanalach, I don't know who you are. Also lekami de Rav Chisda, he came before Rav Chisda. Amar le said to him, Shaper kamerlach, he's saying good to you, meaning it's possible that he doesn't recognize you. Shanamar, as it says in the pasuk, Vayakar Yosef esecha v'heim lo hikiru, it says Yosef recognized his brothers, but his brothers did not recognize him. Melamid sheyatza below chasim azak, and you see that he left, he didn't have a beard. Ubaba chasim azak, and then he came with a beard, he wasn't able to recognize. So over here also, they weren't able to recognize Yosef. Over here also, he's not able to recognize you. Rashi says, Shaper kamerlach shenim akercha. What he's saying is true that he doesn't recognize you. Ve'in zeramos, he's not swindling. Shekashayatza me'atzlecha lo hayelcha chazim azaken. Ve'achsha basa v'chazim azaken. You didn't have a beard before, now you have a beard. That's what happened with Yosef. Vayakar Yosef ezechav shekashayatza mehem hayekulam chasum azaken. When he left, they all had beards. Ve'hem lo hikiru, but they didn't recognize him. Shayatza me'atzlam below chazim azaken. When he left, he had no beard. Uba v'chazim azaken, now he had a beard. And so therefore, again, they didn't recognize Yosef, and that's why Mari bar Isaac does not recognize you. So Amar le, so he said to him, Zil aisi sahadi dachuat, just bring witnesses that you're his brother, and then you'll get the property. Amar le said to him, Isli sahadi, I do have witnesses. However, v'dachali minei, but they're afraid of him. They're afraid of Mari bar Isaac, the gavra alima, who is a violent person. They don't want to testify against him, so to speak, so they're not willing to testify. So Amar Leila Didei, so then he said to him, meaning to say, Rav Chisda said to Mari bar Isaac, Zil ant aisi sahadi delav achachu, fine, bring the same witnesses and let them come in that this person is actually not your brother. So Amar Le, so Mari bar Isaac said to him, Dina hachi, is that really the halacha? I have to bring the witnesses to prove that he's not my brother. Hamotzi mechaveru, all of arai, isn't the rule that if someone wants to take from his friend, he needs to bring the evidence, so he should have to bring witnesses that he is my brother. I don't have to bring witnesses that he's not my brother. Amar Le said back to him, no, hachi daininan loach ulechol alim dechaverchach. This is how I judge all cases for you and any one of your violent friends. Violent people get judged in this fashion. And Rashi explains, the lav achachu, bring witnesses that he's not your brother, meaning osam edim sheyesh lo lazeh, those very same witnesses that this person says he has, that say that he is your brother, shabo misham makirin bo, mihu, they are able to recognize, hey v'yamata, you bring those witnesses. Vayidu she'eno ben avicha, they'll testify that, again, that this is not the son of your father. Or find some other witnesses that prove that this person is not your brother. And again, he said, this is what I judge for all violent people. But Amar Le, but then Mari bar Isaac said to him, sof, but still, asu sahadi v'lo mesadi. What's the difference? If everyone's afraid of me, so I'll bring witnesses, and they're not going to testify like you want. They'll testify whatever I want. So how is that a solution? To say that he can't bring witnesses because I'm violent, so they're afraid to testify, so therefore I should bring witnesses, but if I'm violent, they're going to testify on my behalf anyway. As Rashi says, they're not going to testify like you, they're going to testify like I want them to testify. So what kind of solution are you even suggesting over here? And so the Gemara said to that, Amar Le, so Rav Chisda said to him, Tarti lo avdi, they're not going to do two things wrong, meaning they might refrain from testifying against you, but they're not going to testify for you. They're not going to actively lie in court. That's why I'm telling you that you should bring the witnesses that this is not your brother. L'sofa susadi, in the end, the witnesses came and testified that this person was indeed his brother. Amar Le said to him, Liflo gali nami mi pardisa uvustani deshasal. So then the brother said, I want you to divide also from the vineyards and the orchards that you've already planted. I want to get the improvement as well. Amar Le, so Rav Chisda said to Mari bar Isaac, Shapir kamarlach, he's saying good, he does get the improvements. The Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, hiniach bonim gedolim ukatanim, let's say a person leaves over adult sons and minor sons, vishbichu gedolim esanachasim, and the adult sons improve the property, hishbichulem, so that improvement is divided in half, meaning it's divided among the adult brothers and the minor brothers. The minors do get to partake from the improvement, even though they weren't actually working the property. And Rashi explains, Tarti Loavdi, again, they're not going to do two things wrong. Because they're afraid of you, okay, so they'll be silent, they won't testify. But to commit two crimes, that they won't do. They're not going to testify falsely. Then the brother said to Rav Chisda, I want to get from the vineyards. I want to get from the orchards all the improvement. The shas and all the improvements that he planted and improved it. I want to get half, including all of the improvements. And again, Rav Chisda said that also seems to be correct, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Mem Amud Aleph.